Greetings and welcome to Growth Hacking Show. I'm your host Muhammad Siddique from Atlanta, Georgia. And on this episode, we have a very special guest. He is the podcast host of Psych and Sales, David Weiss. Please join me to give a warm welcome to our guest, David Weiss. David, welcome.
Hey, Siddique, thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it, sir.
Oh, welcome. Thank you so much. Let's get started. And where were you? What happened? Who you were surrounded with that inspired you to get started with Psych and Sales podcast?
Yeah, so and I audio cut out for a second there. What was the question?
Where were you? What happened? Who you were surrounded with that inspired you to get started with your podcast, Psych and Sales?
Yeah, so the story behind Psych and Sales is a little interesting. We started at the beginning of COVID. So I'm a longtime seller. My wife has her PhD in psychology. She runs a private practice. So we were having a glass of wine one Sunday night, just talking about kind of what was going on in the world and how it was impacting people, both in my profession and hers. And we started talking about what people are faced with and what they're doing. And we started talking about what some coping mechanisms both of us were using and helping. I'm a leader, so leading people, helping them with, she and her practice. And we had a really good conversation. We said, you know what? I bet that conversation would help people. And we had it again, only this time we recorded it. And that's where Psych and Sales was born. And we recorded every single week. And we started with 15 to 20 conversations just between her and I, talking about what was going on in the world and what we were seeing and some main threads that we could pull for people that would help. And got some great feedback. And then we started having guests on the show and unpacking their mental health journey. So purpose of the show is really all about helping salespeople with the mental game of sales, because we all know sales is, you can't escape anxiety, you can't escape the ups and downs. It's just going to happen. And how you deal with that can often determine your long-term success or hinder you in the future. So it's all about kind of overcoming that stigma of mental health and getting people stronger at the mental aspects of our profession.
Oh, that's great. So you said you are the leader. So let's see how generous you will be to sharing some of your success secrets in this one. So I'm going to put you on a challenge right now. So David, as a sales leader, what are the top three mistakes people do when they do sales?
So the first one, and I'll try and make this story short. It's picking, especially early in your career, the right organizations to sell for. My first job was the wrong organization to sell for. Big brand, great company, no sales training, great product training. So they didn't teach things like time and territory management. They didn't teach things like really good messaging and sequence building. They didn't teach process. They just said, here's our great product, go sell it. And like literally they put you in a month-long boot camp, didn't teach a shred of sales. They taught you every little thing, nook and cranny of their product. And so when you got out in the field, you just product dump on people, and it was the exact thing you weren't supposed to do. So I quit that job and I did a lot of research. And this is back in the day where research was not done on Google, it was done on Alta Vista. So if anybody remembers Alta Vista, dating myself a little bit. But I found a website that highlighted the top 50 companies at the time to sell for. And I went and I applied to all 50. And I found, I got offers at 2, picked 1. And that was one of the first big growth jumps. I stayed at that organization for 4 years, and they taught me how to sell. So foundationally, folks that maybe picked the wrong company to start with, I always believe that it doesn't matter the pay. What matters is you get a good foundational learning of our profession and you start there. So make sure that sales training is a pivotal importance to you. The next is picking good leaders. So that has happened to me throughout my career, where I've worked for great leaders and I frankly have had some shit ones along the way. And where I've always had my most growth, most happiness, most fulfillment in my job is when I've worked for really, really good leaders that put me, my growth, and my business first. And what that then translated to them is I worked harder, longer, stronger for those people, and they had great years, and they got a lot out of the relationship because they put their people before themselves. So servant leadership. Last one is there's no silver bullets. There's no shortcuts in our profession. You got to find right leaders, right companies, train, work hard, lean into people, Siddique, like yourself, that are thought leaders in the community, as well as bringing on guests, and do everything you can to master the profession. There's no shortcuts.
You said picking up the right leaders. As when you're someone joining a job, they probably don't have any choices to what type of leader they are going to pick up. That's their almost like a luck, After joining, they find out, oh, I'm not at the right company.
I disagree. So I also wrote a book called Your Definitive Sales Career Guide. And one of the things I talk about in that book is that if you are interviewing at a company, it is your responsibility to interview them as much as they're interviewing you. Mm-hmm. And if during that interview process, you ask questions about what's your leadership style, how do you run your meetings, how do you run your one-on-ones? If something happens, how do you handle it? If I've run into a problem, how do you go to bat for me? You ask them questions about them and their leadership style and their background and their experience in leadership. And then it's your responsibility to also ask to interview your people. Just like they ask for references from you, you ask for references from them. You interview that entire team, and you take them out when you can, take them out for a drink, take them out to lunch, coffee. And these days, just say, hey, I need 15 minutes. I really want to make sure I make the right decision, and ask them to be candid and promise it'll be anonymous and you won't share it. You will learn about it. And then based on that, you make your decision. But if you hear yellow and red flags and you still make a decision, just know you're going to be in for it.
Oh, okay. This is good. This is something very unique. Do you also like to ask the question, in case in some certain quarter I don't hit a quota, like a sales quota, how would you treat me, basically? Just put yourself an underperformer in one quarter. It will happen anyway,
Absolutely. There's so much in this profession that's out of our control. So yeah, look, again, you got to do the work and you got to do everything, but how you need to have that candid conversation, because you know what? If you can't have that candid conversation in the interview, you sure as heck aren't going to be able to have it there while working for them. So you got to start that open, fair dialogue early.
Yeah, no, this is amazing. This is great. In fact, anything bonus you want to share? Because this is so good. I like to learn all this. I don't care if somebody's learning or not. I'm learning right to start with you. So
if you told me to prepare 3 things, I'm out. I have no more.
I know. Just give a bonus. You are a leader. You can give me one more bonus. I'm greedy now. Knowledge greedy. Okay, I'm knowledge hungry.
So I would say the last one, and it's going to bleed into my secrets, but the mistake folks don't make is sales is both science and art. Yeah. And they lean into too far into one side or another. You really need to master both. And I see a lot of folks lean towards the art side of sales, where they don't prep for calls. They show up and try and just be super, super charismatic and fun and bring lots of energy. But you know what? Someone that takes a scientific approach, runs a good process, does lots of homework and research, they will eventually win, because they will do, if you think about sales, and I think about everything you do in sales, and every step in sales and every piece of the puzzle that you execute properly increases your probability of winning. So it's not a light switch. It's not like, if I do these right things, I win. You could do everything right and lose. That's one of the crazy things about our profession. So it's all about increasing your probability of winning. So by both embracing the scientific approach of our profession and the art side of our profession, by doing those things, you incrementally increase. So that's where I'd recommend folks is, like, you got to follow a process. You got to follow the sales tools, methodologies, training. You got to do your homework. You got to prep. There are no shortcuts. But then at the same time, man, you got to show up. You got to manage the mental game. You got to show up with a positive attitude every single day. You got to figure out if something's getting you down, what it is, and how to manage through some of those ups and downs in our profession, because you need to show up well for your clients. There is still an adage, people buy from who they like and who they trust. And I believe that. And so you really got to do a great job at both.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful, amazing. So, what are your top three success secrets? Give it away, David.
So a lot fall into that bucket, but process. I am beyond addicted to process. So outside of psych and sales, I am a director of enterprise sales for Outreach. Outreach is a solution that helps organizations essentially take their playbooks, put them into methodical processes, measure them, iterate on them, and make them better. So I work there for a reason. I also work for Dale Dupree's Sales Rebellion. I also do work with Dave Kennan's Replays. Every single one of those organizations is focused on helping salespeople master the process of selling, and do it with heart and do it with love. So for me, you need to figure out a process that works for you. Um, a lot of those processes are fairly similar and ubiquitous across selling, but some you may need to lean into certain steps more than another. You got to find a process and you got to stick to it and you got to measure it, because there's no way to know if you're ever getting better if you don't have the data to tell you that. So process is really important. The next one is mentors. I have lots of folks that I tap into that are parts of all walks of life, that are highly diverse, that come from lots of different backgrounds and ways of looking at things. And when I'm going through tough times, or when I'm debating a decision, or when I'm just thinking about someone, just people to catch up with that will bring different perspective to my life. I've got lots of people like that. And they've been often fairly intentional. If I see someone post something good on LinkedIn, I'll reach out to them and I'll be like, hey, can we talk? And I'll make it, hey, I won't try and sell them anything. I won't ask them for anything. It's just like, let's build a human connection. Let's build a relationship. Let's have a conversation. And often those turn into pretty, fruitful relationships over time. So seeking out mentors is something that you need to be purposeful and intentional about. And then it's also finding good people within your organization to do that. Sometimes some of my leaders I've worked for in the past have turned into my mentors when we've parted ways. So that's really important. The last piece, and it's why we're here, mental health. What I'll explain to folks is that I've been if you were to look at like the stack rankings of organizations I've been part of, I'm normally in the top 1% of every organization I'm a part of. I've made more money than I can count. I've impacted more lives than I can count. I've worked with some of the best organizations and risen to some of the highest positions, and close to 15 years of President's Club and board of directors. When COVID hit, I got faced with a new leader that was really, really, really hard on me. I got faced with trying to lead my team through arguably one of the most difficult scenarios of my life. And I burnt out, I got depressed. And in all the years of training in both leadership and sales, all my success, all my everything crashed. And I had self-doubt. I wasn't showing up for my wife and my son the way I want to. Things just weren't good. And so that's one of the reasons why my wife and I started Psych and Sales. And it's very common within our profession. So I'll tell people, it really doesn't matter how good you are. And it doesn't matter how much knowledge and experience and success you've had, because I've been there. You will eventually hit a wall. Something will happen in your life. And if through those times you haven't been managing your mental health, you're going to pay for that. And it can hurt you, and it can sideline you for weeks, months, or years. So the reason I started Psych and Sales is to give back to the sales community, because if we can learn the right tools, then it's the other side of the success equation, where you can harness all of that knowledge and experience and success you've had on a consistent basis and manage the anxiety, the negative self-talk, the natural ebbs and flows of our profession. You can manage that along the way, as opposed to letting things boil over and hit walls. And by doing that, you can keep levels of peak performance longer. So the mental game is so important. And it's the other side of in my opinion, success equation that people aren't leaning into. Everybody leans into training and working hard and never stopping and hustle. I see that all over the place. And it's like, look, none of that shit matters, because if you don't manage what's up here,
Yeah.
you're going to fail everywhere else.
Understood. And I'm sure your podcast is so wonderful because I already subscribed it, and I want people who are watching this live or recorded, doesn't matter when you're watching it, who shared with you, go ahead and subscribe it anyway. Here's the link, anchor.fm says psych and sales. Give us one reason why someone should be listening to your podcast.
It goes back to we should all be hungry. We should all be hungry to learn from each other. We should all be hungry to ask ourselves some questions that you're asking today. Like you asked today, what are some mistakes people make? Ask yourself, what mistakes are you making? Ask yourself, what are your secrets to success? Try and shore up things that you're struggling with, and lean much stronger into the things that are strengths for you. So people should listen to this for growth. People should listen to this to get better at what they're doing. We should all be trying to get 1% better every single day.
Top 1%. So, David, who is your ideal guest? Want to see if some thought leader is watching? They probably show up on your,
Anybody who is a strong believer and supporter of mental health and sales, and that wants to help the sales community with that topic. We get real. My expectation is you talk about your personal journey just like I talk about mine, because people don't learn from theory. People learn from your story. So people that want to share that story and share about the struggles of their life and how they overcame them and want to do that to benefit the sales community, I want to talk to those people.
Yeah, in fact, that comes to my mind. I have one guest. He is my mentor and partner, reckless billionaire, Mr. O. And he is the creator of 13 Standards of Knowledge. I would recommend him to show up on your
Thank you.
podcast. So, as we are about to wrap up, I like to ask my guest this question: what would you say to your best friend about growth hacking show where you are on right now at this moment when I'm not there?
I tell people to listen to it. I really enjoyed our conversation. You asked some really good questions, and they're questions that are important that will help people do some self-discovery and also learn from different experts in their field on things they can improve on. So thank you for having me on, Siddique. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. What would you say as a final word, David?
Listen if you can, listen to my podcast. I like your feedback. And if you're struggling with some of the ups and downs, mental health and our profession, you're not alone. We all go through it, and I'm here to help you if you need it. So thanks for listening to this, folks.
Yeah. Thank you so much, David Weiss, for sharing your wisdom with us today on the behalf of Growth Hacking Show community and our entire team. We really appreciate you. This is Muhammad Siddique signing off from Atlanta, Georgia. All good wishes.
Thank you, Steve. Bye, everybody.